We're going to get started with our next session, the Culture Connection. With us today, we have Karen Federer, our moderator from Blanco. Kevin Corrigan on stage twice in a row. He was so good the first time, we brought him back for a second time. Craig Boswell, we managed to pry him out of the gym this morning where I saw him earlier. And I have nothing smart to say about Rich because I don't know Rich. So with that said, I want to hand this over to Karen. Karen's going to moderate the session, so if you would please give them your full attention. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? I say this at every session. I'm from Brooklyn. I don't even need this. You guys could hear me very easily. And I just want to make a blanket apology. If the gentleman is in the room that I walked in on in the men's room this morning, I didn't see your face. I just want to apologize. I was so embarrassed, and I can't even blame it on alcohol. So I apologize. Didn't see a thing. Okay, so yeah. Could have been worse. So our session today, there's so many sessions on technology and everything that's going on, and I've done so many of these, and I really wanted to kind of come up with something different, and I'm gratefully also a member of ISRI on the electronics committee, and they're doing a session later, and one of the ideas that they threw around was something around culture. This is something super important for a lot of reasons today, and our wonderful panel is going to go into it, but how culture drives results. I go to ITADs all over the country, and it's so obvious who's happy, who's not, who's doing their jobs well, who's not. And so why not bring a session, bring some ideas together from different types of ITADs, different types of organizations. And that's what we're trying to present to you this morning. So I'm going to start with Kevin Corrigan, who's with Ingram. Probably everybody knows Kevin. And if you'd like to do a short introduction, please.
Sure. Yep. And we're going to give a little background on the company size too. So it gives a little more culture perspective, because I think each one of us have different types of company and different size of the company. So Kevin Corrigan, my day-to-day is overseeing all of our global remarketing. So it's I've got a team, and you're going to be amazed at the size of the team. It's pretty small. My entire team, and this is from support people all the way through sales people, is only about 36 people. So we represent, over 400 million in sales, and with 30, I think we're down to 34 right now. So the nice thing about the size too, so is Ingram Micro ITAD, just our one division. The ITAD division has over 800 employees, mostly going to be in the operations side. So as I talk about culture today, it's going to be more on the sales side, the front office side. I don't incorporate too much of our culture into that operations side. But just giving you a kind of a larger scope perspective of what is that and what is the size. I mean, Ingram Micro, obviously 50 billion in revenue and 20, I think I could be wrong, but 28,000 employees globally. The culture I'm going to speak to today is the ITAD division, which is about, like I said, 800, my team being significantly smaller. And that's what we'll talk about.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Craig Boswell with Hobby, please.
Yeah, so Craig Boswell with Hobby. I'm president of the company. We've been in business for about 30 years. I was one of the founders, so I know what you're thinking. Must have started when I was 10, right? Family owned. My sister and I own the company. We have about 150 employees across 3 sites, so kind of mid-tier in size. And obviously that influences the decisions we try to do about culture.
And finally, Rich Dunaway from IT Solutions.
Richard Dunaway, IT Supply. First of all, I wanted to get out of the way the glasses. I do have a glare issue, so I wear the glasses. But other than that, I see fine. So we are a staff of 24, started in 2015, located in Florence, Kentucky. We have sales of about $12 million a year. Originally we started with desktops, laptops, got into servers, everything else. And recently we are R2 V3 certified. So we dove right into the ITAD industry.
Thank you. And I apologize for the name. mishap. One of the things I do want to encourage, we're going to ask questions. We're actually going to do a live poll, but please, if you have questions on anything that's shared, don't wait till the end. I don't want you to forget it. This is going to be very interactive. We want you to hear, get the questions that you have answered as well. But I'm going to kick it off and say, has your culture had to change as a result of the workforce challenges?
Sure, we'll go in order, I guess. Yeah, operationally speaking, they went through the most struggles when it came to, labor over the last few years. But more so, I'll speak to the front office and sales. The company, we had to take, an active effort as volume went through a downturn. Luckily, profits went up during COVID. So as profits went up, we could still, pay those folks and stuff, even though workload went down. So it was a nice time for us to get into projects and do different things, but it didn't change. COVID didn't hurt our front office. It really, really hurt the operational staff. And turnover was bad, and showing up to work was bad, and getting people to come back to work was bad. So all of those things, operationally, there was a struggle. But on the front end of the business, I would say it gave us an opportunity to engage folks. We were able to actually change seats with some people, which was really healthy for the culture, because you were able to do some things where you're like, you know what, you would work out so much better over here. And we were able to kind of switch seats with people and responsibilities.
Thank you.
So, we've tried as best we can to have a culture that values our employees. I think that's an important part of culture, right? But COVID, with that goal in mind, represented some significant challenges. How much do you value me if you're making me come to work in a time where I don't feel it's safe? We were an essential business. We could stay open. But if you really care about me, but you're making me come to work and I'm scared. And so it really, really was a challenge for us to make sure that they felt valued, and we were addressing those issues, all the things we could do to make it safe. And we did shut down several times for extended periods to clean and so forth. And then you have the transition where, people are looking at their friends that are working from home. I'd really like to work at home. I think if you valued me, you let me work at home. And I'm like, okay, I really can't send these laptops to your house to be erased, right? That's really not going to work in this environment. So what can we do to, adapt our culture to make it better for people that are looking at work-life balance, and that's becoming a bigger and bigger part of their thought process. So we looked at things like 410s and giving them 3-day weekends, and having shiftable schedules and those types of things. And as management, that represents cultural challenges, because you have to make sure that they understand that when you say no, it was a thoroughly evaluated decision. Because if I give it lip service, people are smart. They catch lip service right away, right? And so you got to go beyond the lip service and hopefully communicate to them, hey, we made these decisions this way. In fact, just for your information, we didn't go to 410s. We talked about going to 410s, and we're of a size we can't have 10 people on 410s and 10 people doing this and 10 people that. And the workforce itself decided they would prefer not to go to that schedule. And it's like, okay, if that's what the consensus is, we're not going to adjust. But it was a very challenging time, and shifted our culture, I think, somewhat in how we look at the people and how we look at the work environment.
Pretty much the same as everybody else. Before COVID, I don't think we had a single person leave our company the first 5 years. Post COVID, many more opportunities out there, inflated wages. We have lost some people, which is we've been forced to cross train, give people some opportunities to move up. But during COVID, I think we really showed how much we cared for our employees. I think the first thing I did, gathered everybody, and I think we had 5 people, some of our older staff or people with, other issues as, heart disease, diabetes, where we actually sent them home, I believe for 3 or 4 months, to do nothing. We paid them to stay home. We provided lunches every day. to kind of keep people from going out, bringing in germs, all that stuff. So I do think that that kind of showed them, how much we care about them, what a family atmosphere we do have. Even in our personal lives, a lot of the functions we go to, our family, our coworkers show up as well.
Thank you so much. And I think we'll start with Craig. How do you adapt your culture based on job roles?
So one of the transitions, we try as best as we can to have opportunities for advancement in our company. But as you look at advancing people, pretty much when you start in a low-level role in the company, you're a taker, right? You're looking for, what is the company going to do for me? Do I fit? Does this feel like a good environment for me? As you move up the company, you become much more of a trendsetter and much more influential within the company as far as what the culture is set. One of the things that I push back on a lot is companies that think they can set culture through a motto. Ford said quality is job one. Look, I'm a Ford truck guy. Sorry for all you Chevy folks out there. I'm from Texas. I'm a Ford truck guy. But I can tell you quality is not always job one on my Ford truck. I've been underneath that thing and seen some pretty bad workmanship in my time. If we're going to set the culture, that has to feed through the entire organization. And that message has to be consistent. So as people's roles change, it's very important that we make sure the message that they're delivering is consistent with the culture we're trying to create. And that can be hard. You have a lot of different personalities. I can tell you that my sister and I run the company. We're not super type A people, but we have super type A people that work for us. And before I worked at our company, I worked at TI. Had a boss once that was a yeller and a screamer, and that was effective for him. There's a lot of history in TI about a CEO that fired people like that and was a super control freak. In our culture, that doesn't necessarily work. So if I move you into a role where you're influential, I'm going to have to say, look, you're going to have to adapt to the culture. And your management style has to be consistent with the culture that we're trying to create. Doesn't mean we don't have rules, but it would really be odd in this culture to have you screaming and cussing and, threatening somebody for their job when that's really not how we do things.
So one thing we do is we always try to promote from within. So we have actually given people opportunities where they had no prior work experience. We've kind of learned to live with some of their mistakes, giving them many opportunities to learn on the job. But that's kind of our motto: is we always give somebody a chance to advance. We've become much more flexible with some of our schedules. We do allow people to work from home now if we can. Some of the warehouse personnel that, obviously they have to be hands-on there every day. We do things to try and, break up the monotony of the everyday workday. We do lunches, we do grill outs, water balloon fights, everything to kind of keep it as fun of an atmosphere as it can be.
As size grows in the company, challenges, you face new challenges, and segmentation is one of those. So as I mentioned before, operations is operations, sales is sales, and then even our sales is broken into two organizations where you have inbound sales and then outbound sales is what I represent. So each one of those gets segmented. So corporate culture becomes difficult. And what we've seen over the years is that a leader, our corporate leader can push down an initiative, but each one of those divisional leaders and how they push the culture into their teams is going to be unique and different. We're not all the same, even though the initiative can be one initiative, it's how we're going to deliver it to our people. So my answer to that is, in my team, in my organization, is a sense of humbleness. I do a few different things with my team. One of them is I've taken an active role in saying I will surround myself with people better than me. in things that I'm not good at. So taking a leadership standpoint in front of your employees and simply pushing to them that I'm the leader and I'm the smartest guy in the room, that is not the case at all. Everyone has a unique talent, and their talents are likely better than mine in what I hired them for. So the other way that we kind of keep emotion out of our culture is in how and who we hire. So one thing I do unique as well in my team is I won't make a hire without breaking bread with that person. So I have to eat a meal with them. A few reasons why. One, maybe they're just an awful person with no manners. I don't know. But they have to have a social aspect to them that fits our culture. If I bring somebody in and they don't have a personal fit, we're a tight office. We're a small office with quite a few people packed into it, and they need to be similar, not the same. We don't want the same. We want diversity, but they have to be similar in a way of personality traits and things like that. So it's very important. That's how we kind of build it from the start, or how I built my organization. But from a corporate perspective, they do a very good job too in pushing down consistent initiatives. And you'd think any big corporation is going to say all the typical buzzwords and keywords, and they do, right? We have all of those as a large corporate. But again, they really do a good job of teaching us, the leaders, how to kind of disseminate that into your teams, and they give us the freedom and how to do that. So it's unique and different. It poses different challenges being the size that we are. But again, keeping a small mentality as a leader to your team and how you treat them is going to be very important inside of our organization.
Thank you so much. Before I go to the live poll, are there any questions for anybody or any comments about your culture, how you're Yes, sir.
I have a question. What have you seen is the single biggest change you've made to corporate benefits to attract and retain staff?
I'd like to answer that with money, but that's not always the case, right? We can't just keep raising our pay, but it's ultimately what it feels like is society's asking for, right? It feels like everyone just says, well, a big company means big money, and that's not always the case. Work from home has been, I heard Craig say that, work from home and flexibility on your work schedule. We have become a lot more open with that than historically. And I think that that's not something we necessarily advertise on the hiring, pages, but it's definitely a corporate culture benefit that we've added and how to approach that. But from it's a tough question for me to answer because I'm not on that creation of hiring side. But I will say that Ingram as a corporation has done a pretty good job of being more visible on what their opening pay is and on what their job responsibilities are. They went through a big initiative on rewriting a lot of those job descriptions because, as you know, when you click online and you look at a job opening, sometimes the description doesn't say anything of what you're actually applying for or your talent. So they've done a few of those things, I think, to draw attractiveness to them. But overall, I don't know how to answer that perfectly from my perspective.
I will agree that compensation is a big issue right now. The general market has compensations have increased. You have to be competitive. I think beyond compensation, we've emphasized a lot more fit because we know people are fairly transitory right now. So, a 90-day probation period, and look, we'll sit you down, and if you say, hey, this doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for you, move on to the next thing. I think we've pretty much acknowledged the fact that the worker environment, especially at the level we're hiring at, it takes quite a bit to get them engaged in the job. And so if they're not going to get engaged, it's probably mutually beneficial if we don't continue this relationship. And by the way, I think that's going to change. I think with the economy taking a downturn, we're going to probably see a pivot on that. But there's some benefit to that. Again, if we're truly going to value our employees, if it's a bad fit, it's probably not going to be a long-term thing anyways. Everybody that needs to make a mortgage payment ultimately needs a job, but a job that doesn't fit for you creates a lot of misery. So.
With the inflation that everybody is seeing right now, obviously compensation is first and foremost, unfortunately. But we have had to be more flexible, just like everyone else. Allow people to come in late, go home early, deal with everything they have to deal with from a personal standpoint. That's pretty much how we retain people is we offer flexibility that a lot of places will not, which sometimes is just as important as the compensation itself.
Go ahead, Steve.
So all three organizations are either certified users or part two. From a culture standpoint, like what do you do beyond your four walls that in terms of community impact or things that you do that influence the way your culture develops?
I'm going to repeat the question. What do you do culturally beyond the four walls to bring people to the fold?
To share the culture of the company outside.
To share the culture of the company outside the four walls of the building.
So good benefit of being part of a large corporation is they have a lot of those programs established. So we, in my office particularly, we attach to the United Way initiatives. We can get out because they do programs all throughout. And we're a multi-site company. So we've got sites all over, and United Way for us is a really good partner because each city has a chapter, right? It has that. So we've done a lot of those events. Internally, we're actually supporting some of the local school systems. So we do school drives, and we usually put laptops and tablets with the school supplies we collect. So we're in the middle of one of those initiatives as well. And that's locally. So we're in Joliet, Illinois is where our warehouse is, and that's where we're going to support. Same thing's happening in our Indianapolis facilities. They'll do that too. They'll collect school supplies, and then we'll pick a school usually. And usually we call the district, and they'll let us know which school is under-resourced or needs that help. So that's the initiative we're in right now, but we will frequently do that. We also get out into the community. We've done cleanup events and different things like that to help, just the overall environment impact and all of that we boast in our company. So we'll actually go out and do something environmentally impactful to the community.
So we have a couple different things. Our facilities, our facilities are in different areas. So I'm out of our Dallas facility. It's right downtown. There's a significant homeless problem in most major cities now, the same way in our Phoenix office. We're fortunate in the business we're in. We get a lot of surplus material. Sometimes that surplus material can be very beneficial to the homeless. So we work with a homeless shelter in the area where we donate things. In some of our hiring, we've worked with shelters that are trying to place people and trying to transition people from homelessness to an apartment to a living wage. In our suburban Chicago facility, where it's much more suburban, their focus is a little bit more at an international basis. They do some work with some international schools for donations for teaching materials and computer products. I think, it is often difficult for people that you're hiring at what is just barely a living wage to be too much emphasis on that, because we have to balance that, because I know we have people that struggle to make their mortgage every month and so forth. So for instance, we were just about to do a donation of clothing, and instead of doing a donation, we did a internal donation to the people that actually work for us, some of which didn't need that, but had the opportunity. Others have probably made a significant difference. So we try to balance both those things.
With us being a much smaller company, we do not have the structure. So we're kind of all over the place, as it comes to donations. We did work quite a bit with the homeless in Cincinnati. We did set up a computer training lab for them to build resumes, get jobs, get off the streets. We've also done, quite a bit of stuff. During COVID, I know we prepared quite a few laptops for students that were all of a sudden working from home. We donated those on an at-need basis. So everybody had technology at home. We do quite a bit with the schools in our area, donations. We do drives instead, cleanups. That's about a bi-monthly thing where we take some of the profit from what we sell and return that to the school. So we do quite a bit. We just don't really have the structure to key in on one thing.
I'd like to answer that if it's okay. One of the neat things that Blanco does, they started it last year, is every employee globally, because we are a global company, gets 1 day off a year to do something volunteer in their community. So they can choose whatever that is. And there's some cities where there's multiple employees, and there's some where it's somebody maybe doing it with their family, but they have the day to do it with their family. And the other thing, which I thought was pretty neat, is we're in different countries and all the time zones and all that. During Mental Health Awareness Month, we actually every day had a different session twice a day for different things. Like we had somebody that did art with us, and I was doing art with people in Europe, making something and then talking about it and why did you do that? And people really opened up. There was one for women on work-life balance with families. I don't remember the title for the men, but the men had their own session. And I liked listening to the ones that weren't, they were all, they didn't do all of them, but some of them they did record. And I didn't want to listen to the one about the men because I just didn't feel it was right. But what I was told was the men really opened up because there was so much shared, there was a lot of shared feelings and things, and having that within the company, but being able to talk to people that you never otherwise talk to was a really amazing initiative. And I'm really excited. I'm sitting here like really proud of what we do. It's just had nothing to do with who we are and what we do, but what we do to take care of ourselves, is pretty amazing. And I did want to share that. Are there any other questions or comments culturally? Yes, sir. Can you stand up and speak a little louder, please? Did you hear that? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so his question was on compensation. Is it better to place, it was an opinion-based question, so is it better to place compensation on the individual or on the team? And so I'll answer that. I had a transition about 2 years ago with my commission compensation. So this is tied, everybody's paid a salary or an hourly rate, depending on where you're at in the organization. But we also have commission plans or bonus. I won't call them bonuses, commissions, true commission plans. And we had individual commissions for years. That's how I've been doing it for the last 15 years, was individual-based commissions. You have a target to go hit, you go chase it, you hit the target. As we began to condense our sales team into categories. So now I have category-specific people. That might be a laptop guy, and then I've got a desktop guy and a hard drive gal, and you spread it out, and we're category-based. But my initiative, so what we've done is we've taken it from corporate down in my team, and I've said, all right, I'm working personally. My bonuses are tied to a direct number. They're tied to a revenue number. And if I need to get my team to march to that revenue number, I want them to march with me. And that revenue number is the most important thing. I know I can break out their business into individual targets. I can, and I have. Those are going to be used for managing the employee. And that's what we did about 2 years ago. We transitioned to using all the individual targets to be nothing more than your validation for your job. Your commissions are now tied to a team commission pool. And if we don't row together, if this team doesn't work together, I'm never going to hit my revenue target. And I've transitioned that entire team over to a single revenue target now for the entire commission team. If you're on commission in my organization, you're all on one number. It's one number that everyone's chasing. It created an accountability level as well. It really brought to the surface maybe a couple of people that weren't pulling their weight. And what we do is we dig in to find out, are they not pulling their weight, or did their category just shift? Are we doing a bad job at forecasting their category? Are we putting a target number on them that changed? As laptop prices over the last 4 or 5 months have declined dramatically, I now have to go in and adjust those numbers, but we're still marching to that revenue number. So simple answer to that question is we are a team commission oriented but individually managed to their targets.
So I'm a big believer in team compensation where it's practical. I like the idea of rowing the boat, all pulling together, and peer accountability I think is important. I will say that takes a lot more investment for us as managers because the fairness of those compensation structures can be questioned easily. You know, if I'm in a boat where I'm rowing like a maniac, but my rowing really doesn't make a difference to team performance, I can find that quite frustrating. And, you know, there's a lot of situations like that. So where we have fairly small cohesive cells of effort, like maybe in our D-man area, a team compensation structure works fairly well. Where we have a much more strung out process where individual performance doesn't necessarily always build to a team accomplishment, we find that a lot more challenging to create that. I would love to create those, but you know, sometimes we don't have the measurables to make sure that the individual's contribution is accurately reflected in the overall team performance, similar to what you were talking about with, you know, a sector decreasing.
So we basically go the team compensation, and then we kind of count on everyone to be accountable, kind of keep a pulse on how each person is doing inside that team, to make sure they are pulling their own weight. We also have to look at ourselves to make sure we're not asking them to do a job that you know can't be done. You know, such as laptop prices dropping. You know, if we purchase them at a higher price, it's hardly fair to have them sell it and tell them this is the number you have to chase. And sometimes it's just not doable, and we cannot penalize them for that.
I will say it's not easy. The transition of commission plans is really hard on people. Personalities, you know, conflict with that. It works better, but it took a good probably 6 months of angry employees and, you know, things to transition it over. When you miss that target as a team, boy, oh boy, do they really, accountability turns into anger, I think. So, you know, they don't miss anymore. At least they haven't. So it's working. But again, it's 2 years in transition. But I personally, when I was at that level in selling, I personally enjoyed the individual component because I can control my own destiny. And that for me, but that's my personality. And it isn't the personality of every sales rep that I have. They're all individual producers, but they all, sometimes they need that team mentality to be at their best.
I'm going to go to the live poll now because I think it's going to bring up some more things and possibly some more conversation. I'm going to list 4 things. What do you think employees value? I'm going to give you the 4, and then if you can raise your hands, that would be great. The first one is work-life balance. The second is feeling valued, opportunities for growth, and compensation/benefits. So I'll go to the first one first. What do you think employees value? How many say work-life balance? Okay, we got a sprinkle. Feeling valued. Okay. Opportunities for growth. And I know where this one's going. Compensation and benefits.
2 hands up. 2 hands up.
Okay, absolutely. All of the above is definitely. Okay, so we can start. I actually just had this idea off the top of my head. One of you that felt very strongly about one over the others. Is there anybody that felt, other than the compensation, because we know that one's the big one, other than that, is there anybody here that felt very strongly that work-life balance, feeling valued, or opportunities for growth was, okay. Could you share with us why? Could you stand up and speak and let us know why?
So I think the idea of value, especially when you have sales guys, difficult sales guys, hard to manage with awesome producers. They'll take your company a long way digging
No, that's great. I think, and the way you say that, right, he's your top producer, so that means he's getting paid already. So it isn't compensation that's the issue. You bring up a really good point, because yeah, if that's your top guy, he's already making the money. So it's a challenge internally as well, especially when you get into the team compensation method I just mentioned, because your top producer now is pulling the weight maybe for everybody else. So then, and if he's still making the same, hitting the bonus figures and everything else, the value there is a challenge. And what I found in top producing reps and your top salespeople, time. They want your time. And time isn't something that we always have. My family wants my time, my employees want my time, but value comes through personal connection, in my opinion. This is just how I would deal with that situation. Is I would spend time with that person. Next business trip I'm taking, they're going with, or a day, we're going to blow off a day together. Let's blow off a day and go see the ball game or do something. I'll treat that person to time, because, and it's not an arrogant thing. I don't want that to sound arrogant at all, but they value you as their boss. And so it's not an arrogant thing. It's not I get to spend time with you. No, it's not about that at all. They want something from you, but you're already giving them money, so they want your time. That's my opinion.
I was going to ask you, have you considered asking him, what do you need to feel valued? Because oftentimes I project what I would want on somebody else as opposed to them giving me the opportunity to tell me. And it could be something that would completely never be on my radar, and it's something so simple.
I would say not directly, but I've known the guy for a long time. We've transitioned companies together. Not directly, but I am.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Something.
please.
So as I looked at those four things, and I knew this question was coming, so I had all day to think about it. We talk about value in our employees, and I think if you look at feeling valued, it really encompasses the three others, right? If I don't feel I'm compensated correctly, I don't feel valued. If I don't feel that you care about my work-life balance, I don't feel valued. And so when we talk about valuing our employees, it's just not the dollars, right? It's making sure their accomplishments are acknowledged. I can tell you it was a big thing for us to switch years ago to a formal annual review process, very formal annual review process. But one of the things we found beneficial in that is at least once a year, we talk about your value to the company in some depth. We have forms we have to fill out. I'm going through this right now in my hotel room, so I'm thinking about it. With forms you have to fill out that touches on just different aspects of your job. And, one of the emphasis there is, where are you adding contribution to the company? Thank you for doing this. Sometimes there's negative feedback, but you know what? If you give negative feedback, there's value in that too. So the thing about your kids, disciplining your kids in some ways is much, much harder than praising them, but there's value to that to them because you're taking time with them to mold their behavior to hopefully help them progress into adulthood. Same thing with employees, taking time to sit down and say, hey, if you want to understand why you're not progressing, we kind of expect this, and this, your numbers are lower than, is there a reason for that? Are there things we can do to improve your numbers? And taking that time has value, and it makes them feel valued.
So one thing I've learned over the years is meet the problem head on. Guessing what they're looking for, what would make them happy. We make it a point every week. I go talk to my guys. I know probably more than I should about their personal lives. They know they can come to me with any problem. Unfortunately, notoriously, I am a person that not very good at saying no. But we have a young kid, I'll call him, that we've recently promoted into purchasing. He ran us into a good opportunity, developed a relationship. I went and talked to him. I wanted to reward him. We are a smaller company, so I do have a little more flexibility to, do unscheduled bonuses, out of the box kind of bonuses. And I asked him what do you need right now? And he basically told me, he has 2 young kids. He's getting married. So he's trying to come up with a down payment for a house. I said, what if we covered your rent for 2 months and you put that money into your savings? So for the last 2 months, we've covered his rent, getting him a head start on his savings towards his house. So that's the kind of stuff, is just ask. Just ask them what they need.
Okay, I know we're starting to run out of time, and I have one final question I do want to pose, but I did want to give anybody else an opportunity. Is there one of those 4, work-life balance, feeling valued, opportunities for growth? We're going to leave the compensation benefits. Of those 3, are any of those like resonating with you in a very strong way? Yes.
I think work-life balance is the most important because if you are dedicated so much to work that you don't have time for your life, then you might feel trapped or in a troubling situation, not one or the other. If you're giving too much to one and not enough to the other, then you won't be at your best. I feel like if you address your life, when you're at work, you'll feel more calm, more confident, be able to produce better, creating a better value for yourself within the company. But I think it all comes back to having that balance and being a balanced person coming into it and making it perform your best.
No, thanks, Dave. Very true that we've all experienced it as an employer. If you employ anybody, you know that you've had an employee problem. And usually the problem doesn't resonate at work. It resonates with something in their life first. Something went wrong, divorce, something horrible is going on in their life that then drives a bad employee experience at work. I've always seen it that way. It typically, there's something else going on, not just at work. So that's a good point. It is. And real quick, I did see, when I read that question, I looked at it selfishly as an employer, and I looked at it as opportunities for growth. I want my employees to want to grow. The problem is, not a lot of them want to grow. There's a lot of employees that are fine being stagnant, and that's okay. I had to come to the realization that I need soldiers too, not just leaders. There are very good soldiers, and I have to be okay with realizing that they don't always want to grow. They might just be perfect in the role they're in for the rest of their career, and that's okay. But as a go, go, go leader, I want to see people go, go, go with me, and it can become challenging. So when I read that initial question, we got it, I had to rethink it a few times and say, all right, that's a me answer. That's not an everybody answer.
Thank you. And Rich, I'm going to let you kick off with the final question, which is, what's the one thing everyone can do today to improve company culture?
So I think the easiest thing to do is maintain your culture. The culture you've built, there's good times, there's bad times, is stay consistent. Always be the same. Always realize that the people you've hired, you've seen something in them. They're all good people. But even good people have bad days. So, if they're having a bad day, find out why. Don't vilify them. Don't make them out to be a terrible person. There is something going on, just like you said. Find out what that is and help be a solution for that problem. But just maintain your culture all the time, no matter how tough times get.
Thank you.
I would say my point would be to be intentional about it. It's easy to let culture evolve. Unfortunately, if you let culture evolve, a lot of times leadership will have undue influence, and that may not be necessarily the culture you're trying to create. If you want a culture that values your employees, then be intentional about it. Communicate that to your leadership. Have programs that reflect that. I did business long time ago in this industry with a company called AFM. Very driven company, crazy driven. And I once asked him, what does AFM stand for? He said, anything for money. And I looked at that and I thought, you know what? That guy is intentional about his culture because everybody in that organization will do anything for money. Maybe that's not the culture you want, but he did create that culture and he was very intentional. I mean, he even titled his company around it. I'm going to do anything to make a buck. And everybody I dealt with there had that motto. I can tell you, even if they didn't know AFM standard for anything but for money.
That's good. A couple things I think that it was, what was the question? It was,
What's the one thing everyone could do today to improve company culture?
so a couple things that I think can be done in time. I answered the gentleman's question earlier that with time, with your employees. I think that culture starts obviously with the leader. You can't allow your employees to create their own culture, otherwise it'll turn sideways. But one active thing you can do is spend more time in the conference room and less time in your office. So I've actually given up my office 100%. I office out of the conference room with my laptop, and it's an open atmosphere. So the team's allowed to come sit with me. 90% of the calls that I do in a day are not private information. They're welcome to listen in if they really find value in it. The ones that are HR related or finance or something, I have to, I'll go sit in somebody else's office. But we ran out of space, so I gave up the office, and the conference room is now it. So that has created an environment of sharing and also cross-training. People are learning more about what's going on in the company. A lot of things, a lot of benefits coming out of that. And the other thing I would say is we also created in a smaller office setting, so this works for smaller companies. Someone in your office is good at party planning and enjoys it. It's not me. I'm not that person. I'm even bad at ordering pizza on time for lunch delivered. I'm just not that person. I'm not a planner. But we've selected a woman, Denise, in our office, who we now kind of deemed her the house mom. I've given her a budget of $150 a month, not a whole lot of money, but I've given her that $150 a month and said, do something for the office. I'm not good at it. You're better at it than me. I don't care what it is. She's got signs, the chalkboard sign that she writes a note on every week, changes the note. I mean, little things like that she manages because she's good at it and I'm not. And I wouldn't have driven that culture in our office the way she's doing it now over the last 3 or 4 months. And I'm seeing participation of people, Hawaiian Day, like all kinds of things, potlucks they're bringing in now. So just a huge shift in our office and more of an emotional connection between people than there was before. So those are a few things I think that have had a recent impact in our culture.
Anybody want to share what they're doing in their organization to change culture? There's no secrets here. We're not competing. We're what is it? If you can't compete, what is the thing? I coined it and I can't remember. Collaborate. If you can't compete, collaborate. We're just talking about what are you doing that's working with the culture. Adam, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So for us, a couple things. You talked about recognition, you talked about money. We stock a bunch of gift certificates, gift cards to Wegmans, the grocery store, Walmart, other places. And if we see somebody do something good on the floor, any manager, supervisor can give that individual a gift card just as recognition. Not so much about the money, but just being recognized. In addition, for company culture, another thing that we do is usually once a month, once a month, every first Friday of the month, we do Pizza Fridays where we buy pizza for the whole company. And then in addition, generally every other month, we bring in a food truck on a separate day. So like next Wednesday, we've got an ice cream truck coming in for lunchtime, and we'll have all the employees go out after lunch and get free ice cream. So we find that little things like that definitely help with the culture. They're fleeting in the sense of the fact that the next day they forget that they had ice cream the day before, and it's not that, hey, what are they going to do for us next? But little things like that definitely help with the culture. People do generally appreciate it.
That's awesome. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I'll share.
Yes, thank you.
In our company, we do the gift card recognition. They love the gas cards right now. Amazon, even local restaurants, DoorDash. But something we found is going to Costco once a month and just buying all kinds of snacks and drinks and just having big baskets of chips and cookies just so they can walk by and grab them. Having freezers full of popsicles and little things during the day that don't amount to a lot of money, but to the team, means a lot to that.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share something that we're doing, and it costs nothing, but it's really been very surprising how well it's been received. And I think it's called The Hub. Is that what it's called? I don't know. It's called something. We have some website. And what we can do is acknowledge somebody either privately or throughout the whole company on there. So if I want to acknowledge somebody going out of their way, my sales engineer is amazing, Chris, and I want to share something special that he did, I can let everybody in the company know how well he did and that I'm publicly thanking him. And that whole thing about feeling valued that we were talking about, it's amazing. I mean, how many people are, I thought, oh, well, this is kind of nice. Probably the women will do it and that'll be about it. The men are participating even more than the women. And it's just, it didn't cost anything. They're not getting anything. There is a way to potentially give gift cards, but I don't think we've gotten that far with how we're pushing it out yet. But I think that acknowledgement is pretty neat. You know, you did a good job, but you want other people to know that as well.
Yeah, and those of you on Teams, Teams offers the same thing. We've been doing that corporately through Teams, where you can send out an announcement of validation or a praise for somebody. Yeah.
I want to be respectful of the time. We have 1 minute. Anybody want to share anything that? Yes, sir.
This goes back to like trying to send your culture beyond the four walls. One of the things that we do is every employee, when they get on board, they choose a non-profit organization that means something to them, and every single week, 2 employees are selected, and a charitable donation is made on their behalf to that organization. So it's a way for the employees to basically have an impact in the world, and again, beyond the four walls, what they're doing every single day.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank you all for attending and for sharing what's going on with your companies and also your questions to bring on some more conversation. I hope everyone has a wonderful show and make it a great day.